Hello everyone out there, it's the NFL Exporter on the Derek Shapiro Show. You are tuned in to another edition of the Final Wrap. I'm here each and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, recapping all of your NFL fantasy football and weekly action that goes on. The call-in number to the show, 716-249-0552. If you'd like to email the show, it's NFLExporter@yahoo.com. Leave your name, city, and state, favorite football team, whatever it is you'd like for me to talk about during the show. Leave it in the email, stick it in the weekly segment. Also, you want to follow me on Twitter at NFLExporter, especially if you're a fantasy football owner. Make sure you send me a friend request on Facebook.com/NFL Exporter. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel, a lot of behind the scenes footage, exclusive interviews. Go to YouTube, click on channels. In the search engine, it's NFL Exporter for all the above, where the name NFL Exporter was used. That is NFLExporter. We are going to get the show started today by recapping our fantasy football action from around the NFL. For many fantasy football owners, the playoffs started this week. For others, this was the last game of the season, so unless you already had a playoff spot sewn up, certainly needed your studs to perform. Starting off at the quarterback position, surprisingly, it was Cam Newton of the Carolina Panthers, 35 points, had 4 touchdowns against the New Orleans Saints. Next was Matt Ryan, 31 points at Green Bay. Ben Roethlisberger, 28 points for the Steelers. That was playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Russell Wilson finds himself in the mix yet again, 28 big points in a road victory over Philadelphia. Aaron Rodgers, 27 points for Green Bay, and Andy Dalton, 26 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Taking a look at this list, I would say that Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, Andy Dalton, those 3 quarterbacks probably were not in a lot of people's lineups. If you look at the way that Cam Newton has struggled at Carolina offense all year, Matt Ryan has struggled on the road, outdoors, cold weather, and Andy Dalton just can't be trusted. So you got 3 out of your top 5 guys there who I don't think were in a lot of people's fantasy football lineups. On the other hand, Peyton Manning with 2 points, Phillip Rivers with 9, Drew Brees with 11, Eli Manning with 12, Colin Kaepernick only 8, perhaps even Ryan Tannehill with 13. All of those quarterbacks, especially, Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, those 2 guys were in your lineups. Huge disappointments. Again, Manning only 2 points at this point. Obviously, an outstanding Buffalo Bills defense, and Drew Brees and that New Orleans Saints offense just crumbled at home this week. Moving over to the running back position, how about Le'Veon Bell leading the way with 41 points? This guy is turning into a championship caliber running back. 3 straight games up over 200 all-purpose yards. This kid is unbelievable. DeMarco Murray, 27. Drake Bell for the Detroit Lions, nice 25 points there for owners who were able to utilize him. Jamal Charles and C.J. Anderson, both of those guys with 23. Eddie Lacy out in Green Bay continues to really come on strong here down the stretch. 22 big points, another receiving touchdown. Really like that he's involved in the passing game. When you're looking at running backs who did not show up this week, Giovanni Bernard continues to struggle. He only had 2 points. Counterpart Jeremy Hill only 6. That running back situation out in Cincinnati has become rather complex now. Shane Vereen only 3. Mark Ingram and Shady McCoy. Those guys were in most people's lineups, especially Mark Ingram, only 3 points. For Shady McCoy, I think you can't ever sit these star players, but this was a week you had to consider it. Tough Seattle defense. He lost the fumble, dropped him down to 3 points. Huge disappointment there. Ryan Matthews, he was a guy I really didn't like his matchup this week against New England, only 4 points. Trey Mason, I had mentioned, you like the guy with the confidence coming in off of 3 touchdowns, but Washington's run defense has held up throughout the course of the year. Frank Gore, 6 points. You just really don't know what to say about that. They're only 12 carries, a huge reason why this 49ers team offense has not been able to perform this year. Moving over to the wide receiver position, big names such as Julio Jones with 31 points, A.J. Green, 28 points, Jordy Nelson, 26 points, T.Y. Hilton, 25, Calvin Johnson, 21. I would say if Calvin Johnson was healthy throughout the course of the year, which he is now, right there, those are pretty much your top 5 fantasy wide receivers. Of course, there's a couple names left out we'll get here to in a moment, but if you look at coming into the season, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, Jordy Nelson, obviously T.Y. Hilton was a top 25-ish guy, and then you have Calvin Johnson, but Julio, A.J., Jordy, Calvin, those were top 10 receivers. That's exactly the reason why. Long list here of disappointments at the wide receiver position. Keenan Allen got stuck on Revis Island, couldn't get you a single point. Demaryius Thomas, 11 yards against the Bills D, tweaked his ankle. Andre Johnson, only 1 point with a concussion. Jordan Matthews playing against Seattle, only 2. Kenny Stills out in New Orleans, only 2. Brandon LaFell, only 2. You got Mike Wallace and Larry Fitzgerald with 3. DeAndre Hopkins, that was one that I kind of seen coming there, playing against a tough Jaguars defense. We definitely told everybody to pump their brakes on that whole Ryan Fitzpatrick act there last week on the road at Jacksonville. You have Jarvis Landry with 5, Randall Cobb with 5, Golden Tate with 5, Emmanuel Sanders with 6, and Brandon Marshall with 6. We know that Marshall is out for the year now. And so, kind of looking at that wide receiver position, that was certainly an area there where you had a lot of guys that I would say where you probably were going to depend on most weeks, who just weren't able to even pump in double digits for you. Moving over to the tight end position, top 5 tight ends there. Jared Cook out of Rams, 18. Michael Riviera with 16 out in Oakland. Martellus Bennett, 14 for the Bears. Rob Gronkowski, 14 for the Patriots. Greg Olsen, 13 for Carolina. And then you got Zach Ertz, a Philly with 9, along with Travis Kelce, who had 9. He lost the fumble. That's what dropped a couple points off for him. And when you look at this top list here, I can't say too many owners likely had Jared Cook and Michael Riviera in their lineup. Those were 2 names that honestly I never heard throughout the course of the week when it came to fantasy football talks. Obviously, Martellus Bennett and Rob Gronkowski, strong starts. Good to see Greg Olsen be able to handle this business. All 3 of those guys currently ranked in the top 5 to 10 tight ends. Zach Ertz, that was unexpected with him. He's kind of been missing in action. And then with Travis Kelce, strong game. He's capable of that weekly, just, a lot of times doesn't get the opportunities. The tight ends who did not come through for you, Jordan Reed, after 123 yards last week, only 2 points this week. Larry Donald with 2. Delaney Walker with 2, Jason Witten with 2. You have Antonio Gates with 3, but the name that sticks out here to you is Jimmy Graham with 2. And Jimmy Graham has certainly been a disappointment in fantasy football this year. Your owners are not getting the money, the return on the investment and the money that is pumped into this guy. He was a low first round, high second round pickup. Yes, he's ranked number 2 in fantasy football, or I should say number 3 coming into this week. But he's been missing too many games. 2 straight weeks of 2 points and then 0 points. He's had 0 again this season. On another occasion, he's had maybe about 3 to 4 games where he's getting 2 and 3 points. So, as much as you enjoy the benefits when they're there, you've had quite a few games where Jimmy Graham just did not show up for you this year. Moving over to the defensive special teams, Giants chipped in, took advantage of Tennessee's weak and young offense over there for 25 points. The Rams, they continue to shine. Tavon Austin chipping in with a punt return touchdown, 7 sacks, 2 interceptions for that Ram. D's is just getting it right now, 24 points. Cleveland's defense gave Andrew Luck a lot of trouble, couldn't get the win, but still had 22 points. Detroit did their thing at home, 15 points. Very consistent is that Detroit Lions defense at home. Oakland Raiders, surprisingly, not the San Francisco 49ers here, chipping in with 14 points. When you do look at those defense special teams who did not show up for you, how about Green Bay, -3 to Atlanta in that weather at home? Miami playing Baltimore, Cameron Wake and the guys, only -1, -1 point. 49ers defense, again, 1 point against the Raiders, unacceptable. And the Kansas City Chiefs, playing backup quarterback Drew Stanton, really nobody who can run the football, but teams have been able to run on Kansas City lately. Kerwin Williams for the Arizona had over 100, only 2 points for Kansas City, completely unacceptable. Last, we're moving over to the kicker position. Josh Brown attached to that Giants defense special teams, 21 points. Nick Folk for the Jets, 17. Mason Crosby, nice game there, 15 points. Graham Gano for Carolina, 12. And then you had Sean Swisham of the Steelers, Stephen Gostkowski of New England, Matt Prater of Detroit, Dan Bailey of Dallas, and the kid Bullock out in Houston. All of those guys had 11 points. Looking at kickers who didn't show up for you, Cody Parkey, Philadelphia's kicker, you always imagine he gets a few points, only 2. Nick Novak for San Diego, only 2. Mike Nugent out in Cincinnati, only 3. Big disappointment with Shane Graham. He's been handcuffed to that poor, or I should say inconsistent Saints offense. Only 3 points at home against Carolina. Justin Tucker, he couldn't help it, 4 extra points, but you still expect more money from him. And then Billy Cundiff, here's a guy who's cost his team 2 victories this year. They lost by 1 point here. In week 3, they lost by 2. And he's missing easy field goals. Cleveland Browns receiving a lot of flack. I don't hear his name coming up. You definitely have to point the finger at him. Huge disappointment. Unacceptable, Mr. Cundiff. That is going to wrap up our first segment. We're going to run to a quick break. When we come back, it's time to start recapping our action from around week 14 in the NFL. So don't go anywhere. It's the Derek Shapiro Show. You're listening to the final wrap, NFL Exporter. We'll be right back after this quick break. All right, everyone, welcome back to the final wrap live on the Derek Shapiro Show with the NFL Exporter. Let's not waste any time. Let's go right in. We had a full slate of games, week 14 in the NFL. Dallas Cowboys knocked off Chicago Bears Thursday Night Football. Scoring that one was 41-28. When we look behind the numbers here, you see that Chicago had 2 turnovers. That turnover battle is always a huge part of these victories and losses. You're going to see that theme quite a bit throughout these first couple games, along with 35 rush yards. That is something else. When you have that combination of things going on where you can't run the football and you turn the football over, you're usually not going to win a lot of football games. Dallas Cowboys racking up 400 yards of all-purpose offense. You had Tony Romo, 205, 3 TDs, 2 of those to Cole Beasley. DeMarco Murray, $179 on the ground. A touchdown, continues to work towards 2,000 yards. He's about maybe 390 yards short at the moment. Jay Cutler, 341, 2 TDs. Also had a rushing touchdown, did throw an interception. Big news coming out of this one, obviously. Brandon Marshall, his season is over. Suffered a injury to his lungs and ribs. We certainly hope him to get back 100% healthy ASAP. Dallas now 9-4, tied in first place with the Philadelphia Eagles. Big game coming up this week. Chicago Bears now dropped to 5-9. Their playoff hopes are officially done. Moving over to Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Let's go ahead and do this one more time. The Cincinnati Bengals had 2 turnovers. They only had 86 rushing yards. Pittsburgh 543 total yards of offense. It was Big Ben Roethlisberger for 350 in the air, including a 94-yard TD to rookie Martavius Bryant. Really busted that game open. Roethlisberger's had 3 TDs on the day. Antonio Brown continues to excel. Another 9 catches for $117. And how about Le'Veon Bell? 3rd straight game, up over 200 all-purpose yards, 185 of those, and 2 TDs came on the ground. Guys, just really rounded in the form. Down the stretch run here. For Cincinnati, A.J. Green did have 11 catches, 224 yards, a TD. Andy Dalton, 302 TDs, but they could not run the football. Some costly turnovers. Defense really looking bad this year without Mike Zimmer there anymore. Pittsburgh now 8-5 in command of the wild card hunt, while Cincinnati 8-4-1 now, just a half-game lead over the Steelers in the AFC North. Moving over, St. Louis knocked off Washington 2nd straight week with a shutout. This Rams defense flying around to the football, playing lights out right now. Here is that same stat. 2 turnovers for Washington. Only 27 rushing yards. St. Louis 344 total yards. Sean Hill being very efficient with the football. 213 yards, 2 TDs, both of those to tight end Jared Cook. Meanwhile, the Rams defense just smothered Colt McCoy and company. 7 sacks, 2 interceptions. It was capped off by Tavon Austin taking a punt return, 78 yards for a touchdown. Rams now 6-7. Washington, I think we've known for a while their season is done. They now dropped to 3-10. The New York Giants beat up on the Tennessee Titans 36-7. Here is that same stat for you yet again, ladies and gentlemen. Tennessee with 3 turnovers could only muster up 61 rush yards. Meanwhile, the Giants 402 total yards of offense. Eli Manning 260 yards in the TD, but it was about the rookies. I know that Giants fans have to be very excited about their future. They got a chance to see it on display. Rookie Andre Williams had 131 rushing yards with a touchdown, including a 59-yarder. Rookie ODB, that's right, Odell Beckham Jr. continues to impress. Another 11 catches, 130 yards in the TD. So certainly got some nice young centerpieces to build around there. Bad news for Tennessee. Rookie Zach Mettenberg, his season likely done, suffered a pretty bad shoulder injury, had to leave out of that game. Both the Giants and the Titans are out of the playoffs. Giants 4-9, Tennessee 2-11. The shocker of the day came when we seen Carolina absolutely pound New Orleans 41-10 in the Superdome, and here we are again. New Orleans 2 turnovers. Only could muster up 92 rush yards, led to 497 yards of offense for Carolina. Cam Newton was spectacular, 226 yards, 3 passing TDs, another one on the ground. Jonathan Stewart, he just gashed his defense for $155 and a touchdown, including a 65-yarder. Greg Olsen got in on the action with 2 TDs, had one of the better catches of the year. And Drew Brees in this offense is unexplainable. 4 straight loss in the Superdome. Brees only 235, 1 TD, 1 interception. Couldn't get anything going. I mean, Carolina just jumped on them early, and I tell you, this Saints team, they've got their work cut out moving forward. I mean, I'm not just looking at this season. This team is going to have to get fixed. I don't think this is an off year for the Saints. I think this is the reality of what their offense and their team is right now. So they got some key areas that they're going to have to brush up on in the offseason. Moving on, you have, in there, Carolina now a half game out of first place at 4-8-1. New Orleans is 5-8. Tied for first place with Atlanta, who currently holds the tiebreaker. Minnesota and the Jets needed overtime to get this one hashed out. It was a 87-yard TD reception by Jarius Wright of the Vikings to give Minnesota the win. It was a quick, basically a bubble screen. And, man, he was able to make a move, hit a lane, and he got up the sideline. Really wasn't anybody over there except the linebacker. And he was off and running, and that was it. In this game, pretty even. You would expect from two teams who have young quarterbacks, Geno Smith in his second year, Teddy Bridgewater, a rookie. Both defenses stout enough in the trenches. So both these teams had 2 turnovers each. The yardage was pretty much the same. Both teams had 19 first downs. So again, a pretty well played game between 2 bad teams. Well, the Jets are bad. Minnesota, I would say they're average. You know, they're fighting. You certainly understand why these teams have these records when you look at their roster. The Jets now 2-11, Minnesota 6-7. But Teddy Bridgewater did have 300 yards, 2 TDs. Percy Harvin suffered an ankle injury, but he had a $137 on the day. Again, a game that 2 teams who certainly are in the midst of a lot of turnover and transition within their franchises. That is for sure. Baltimore beat Miami 28-13. Big road victory right there for the Ravens. When you look at what happened in this game, it was about Baltimore's defense. 6 sacks. Miami could only get 1. And Baltimore was plus 10 in the first down category. Miami could only muster up 63 rushing yards. That's a problem right there. I think that's why you see those 6 sacks by Baltimore. Ryan Tannehill, he played all right, 223 in the TD. But it was ultimately the Ravens dominating on the ground. 31 rushes for 183 yards. And Mike Wallace continues to be a guy that's missing in action. 3 catches for only 39 yards. I just don't get it. Torrey Smith for the Ravens did have to lead this game with an injury. Steve Smith Sr. stepped up with 70 yards and a TD. We'll know about Torrey Smith's status a little later in the week, but key victory here for the Ravens, who are trying to keep pace with those teams in the wild card hunt. Right now they are tied with San Diego and Pittsburgh with that 8-5 record. Miami drops to 7-6, and they've got an uphill battle now these last 3 games. They're going to have to probably win out to have a shot at making the playoffs. Moving on, we had Indianapolis. What a game this was. Probably one of the better games of the day, that's for sure. It was Indianapolis beating Cleveland 25-24. And I tell you, in this game, if you look at the stats with Cleveland getting those 4 turnovers, you'd have to almost think for sure they win. But Brian Hoyer continues to be inconsistent with the football, could only find 140 yards in the air, 2 interceptions. Josh Gordon, only 2 catches for 15 yards. And, at the end of the day, you're also looking at, we talked about him, Billy Cundiff missing this field goal. This is a close game. Look, Cleveland really outplayed Indianapolis, with the exception of Andrew Luck. This guy fought blood and guts out there, had to throw 53 times to get this thing done. But it was really T.Y. Hilton who stepped up and really did his thing and showed why he's one of the best wide receivers going in the NFL right now. Went one-on-one out there with Joe Hayden, came up with 10 huge catches for 150 yards, 2 TDs, the last one to seal the deal. And like I said, this was a very good game. I really enjoyed watching this one here. I mean, Cleveland's defense really flies around to the football. I mean, they played excellent defense against Andrew Luck, make life really difficult for him. Like I said, forced 4 turnovers, converted 2 of those into touchdowns. But really, the shaky play of Brian Hoyer at quarterback, it really came back to haunt him. But more than anything, like I mentioned to you, let's look at kicker Billy Cundiff. This is the second time this year where Cleveland is losing by less than 3 points, and he's missing a field goal. And it's unacceptable, and it can't happen, and I think it's something that the Browns have to take a look at. Yes, you want to point the finger at Brian Hoyer. We can't deny that he's not playing well. But when you look at the game of football, everybody's got to do their part. And when you got a kicker missing kicks, 45 yards and in, those are 2 more victories Cleveland could have tacked onto their record. So that's certainly something that we should not overlook. Taking a look at the records now, Indianapolis 9-4, still a 2-game lead over the Houston Texans in the AFC South. Meanwhile, Cleveland drops back to 7-6, and like Miami, likely going to have to win out in order to have a shot at the playoffs. We're going to run to another quick break. It's the NFL Exporter. You are listening to the final wrap on the Derek Shapiro Show. When we come back, we'll hop back into some more Week 14 action from around the NFL. Welcome back to the final wrap live on the Derek Shapiro Show with your host, the NFL Exporter. Make sure you join me each and every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you happen to miss the show on Tuesday, the show re-airs every Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, each week I recap all of your NFL and fantasy football action. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at NFL Exporter. Send a friend request on Facebook.com/NFL Exporter. For both of those, the spelling is NFLExporter. Now let's get back into our Week 14 action. We had the Detroit Lions handle business at home like we all thought they would, beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 34-17. I think this one played out exactly how we anticipated. When you look at what happened on the offensive side of the football, Matt Stafford was able to take advantage of his opportunities. 311 yards, 3 TD passes. One of those a crazy play where the ball was tipped up high in the air. Drake Bell ran under it and was able to carry the momentum in for a touchdown. Calvin Johnson handled his business. 8 catches, 158 yards, a TD. Good to see Megatron back out there healthy and dominating. And on the ground, Drake Bell got it done. 83 rushing yards, another TD there. When you look at Detroit's defense, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, forced 3 turnovers. So when you hear these stats for Tampa Bay, a little misleading. Josh McCown, 250 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. You have rookie Mike Evans, only 45 receiving yards, but did snag 2 more touchdowns. That guy's a big-time player in the red zone. And then Vincent Jackson, 10 catches for 159 yards. And so you could see that in spurts throughout the course of the game, Tampa Bay able to move the ball, but overall it was really early. Detroit's defense dominating, the efficiency of Matt Stafford in that offense getting it done that led to Detroit winning this game. Detroit now 9-4, 1 game behind Green Bay in the wild card. They're 1 game behind Green Bay in the division, and in the wild card spot right now. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, we all know their season is over at 2-11. Houston was able to get a big win on the road, 27-13 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars defense had been playing well, so I didn't think this was a game Houston needed to take lightly. But when you factor in, you have rookie Blake Bortles really struggling out there, J.J. Watt coming to town, I think that's an equation we can easily put together in this football game, though not a lot of offense to brag about. As I mentioned, the Jaguars defense playing much, much better as of late. They held Ryan Fitzpatrick to 135 passing yards. He did have a rushing TD. Arian Foster got it done on the ground, 127 rushing yards, a touchdown. Dre Johnson, as we mentioned, wide receiver, left this game with a concussion. We have to see what his status is going to be later in the week. DeAndre Hopkins kept in check. This was really a defensive battle. Field position again. Arian Foster able to churn out the yardage on the ground. For Houston, you know that J.J. Watt is there every week. 3 sacks, another 4 tackles for a loss. His presence very heavily felt. I think this guy, without question, is the defensive player of the year. When you look at Jacksonville, Blake Bortles, 205, a TD and interception. Denard Robinson got off to a really hot start when he got the number 1 on the depth chart, but the last 3 or 4 weeks has really slowed down. Doesn't seem like that running game is going anymore for Jacksonville. Moving over now, we had Denver beat the Buffalo Bills 24-17, and this was a game where Denver got up early. Buffalo came back late. When I read you the stat sheet here, if I read you the stat sheet before the score, you would probably think that the Bills would win. When you look at for Denver, their running back Anderson, C.J. Anderson. Now, he had 3 touchdowns, so obviously that number is going to let you know some points were scored, but he only had 50 rushing yards. Peyton Manning, 179 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The Denver Broncos had 3 turnovers. The Denver Broncos only had 15 first downs. They had the ball for only 26 minutes. And, the thing I think that sticks out here for you is the penalties. Denver had only 5, Buffalo 11. And so Buffalo pretty much won in all stat categories. Buffalo ran 77 plays to Denver's 49. Kyle Orton had 355 passing yards, only 1 TD and 2 interceptions. But I think we have to give the Bills defense a ton of credit. This is a championship caliber group right now. When you can hold Peyton Manning to under 200 yards passing and get him for 2 interceptions and he doesn't throw a touchdown pass, you're holding Denver's running back to 50 yards rushing. You're looking at Demaryius Thomas, 2 catches for 11 yards. Emmanuel Sanders, 4 for 56. And so a big credit goes to Jim Schwartz and this Buffalo Bills defense. This unit cannot be overlooked. I mean, when you go out to Denver and you stymie up Peyton Manning like that, I don't know if we can put that into words. I think it's something that was overlooked this week, but big time performance. Now, it didn't result in a win. I think this is a game that went how we all anticipated. We understand the Bills have this stout defense, yet offensively they're not able to move the ball and sustain drives, and so other teams, other offenses at some point end up putting up enough points. But it's not easy. This is a Bills team without question that moving forward, if they can keep this defensive unit together and get better, if they can get some offense, this is a team that's Super Bowl caliber immediately. I mean, this defense is playing lights out this year. Bills, though, 7-6, they certainly have their work cut out for them. It doesn't look like they're going to make the playoff schedule, just extremely brutal. They still have Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers left on the schedule. Meanwhile, Denver 10-3, still tied for first place in that overall AFC conference. Kansas City, Arizona. This was a pretty good game here out in the desert. Pretty much a defensive battle, which we expected. Both of these teams' defenses playing, I would say, better than their offenses right now. Arizona was able to edge them out 17-14. Look at behind the numbers on this one. Kansas City, you had 2 turnovers for Kansas City. Arizona with none. So that right there, when you're playing on the road, you already know that you cannot turn the football over. And then you look down the rest of the way, pretty even. Again, these teams resembled quite a bit. Some key plays in this game. Travis Kelce, the rookie tight end for Kansas City, who had a very good game with 7 catches for 110 yards. He ended up fumbling at the end of the game. Very controversial play. I would say it was definitely in Arizona's territory. and he did not hold on to the football. Let's just put it that way. I think, at least from what I seen, it looked like he landed with possession of the football, but on his way to going to the ground, you could clearly see the ball moving around. That was a key play there because Kansas City was well within field goal range, but not a lot of offense in this one, and I don't think any of us thought that would be the case with backup quarterback Drew Stanton and Alex Smith and that low-budget offense they're bringing to the table in Kansas City. Jamal Charles continues to be the only superstar there. Had 91 rushing yards, including a 63-yard TD. Also caught a pass out of the backfield, turned that into a touchdown. Those were only Kansas City points for the day. When you're looking at Arizona doing just enough to win. It was a 26-yard TD pass by Drew Stanton to rookie Jerron Brown to give Arizona the lead for good. Cardinals just able to hold on at the end. Much needed victory there for Arizona, a team who is certainly on the ropes right now. I certainly see them losing to Seattle in a few weeks when that game is played, and ultimately losing this division. I think they'll still have a good enough record to make the playoffs. But again, Drew Stanton, certainly not a guy who can lead that team to a Super Bowl. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see them one and done. Kansas City now falling back to 7-6 in the midst of that wild AFC wild card and playoff race. We're going to run to another quick break. It's the NFL Exporter. You are listening to the Final Wrap on the Derek Shapiro Show. When we come back, we'll finish our Week 14 games and wrap up, so don't touch that dial. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Final Wrap with your host, the NFL Exporter, live on the Derek Shapiro Show. Let's go ahead and finish wrapping up our Week 14 action from around the NFL. We had the Seattle Seahawks go out to Philadelphia and get a very convincing victory as they dominated the Eagles 24-14. This one was all about the Seattle Seahawks. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at these statistics here. You have the Seattle Seahawks with 451 yards compared to Philadelphia's 153. You had Seattle dominating the clock, 42 minutes on time of possession. That equaled 28 first down to Philadelphia's 9. Seattle ran 85 plays to Philadelphia's 45. Russell Wilson had 263 passing yards, 2 TDs, ran for another. Meanwhile, Mark Sanchez couldn't even get 100 yards passing, although he did have a couple TD tosses. When you're looking at Seattle running the football, 46 rushes for 188 yards. That is just pounding the pill. There is a reason that they are leading the league in rushing right now. Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch and company. Philadelphia only able to get 22 carries for 57 yards. So you can see in every aspect of this football game, Seattle just came out and dominated, really flexed their muscle. You know, you look at Seattle right now, and you certainly see them as a team that's regained their swagger. They've regained their confidence, their cockiness, that chip on their shoulder, and they're being real loud about it right now in the football team. These last 3 weeks, if you look at what they've done at home to Arizona, on the road at San Francisco, in this week at Philadelphia, I think this is a unit that's certainly making a loud statement right now around the NFL as the playoffs are approaching. Seattle is still one game behind Arizona at 9-4. Philadelphia still tied for first place in the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys, who are 9-4 as well. Another game that was very surprising: Oakland Raiders knocking off in-state rival San Francisco 49ers 24-13. I think this is a game that went the exact opposite when you look at the stats, how you would have initially anticipated it to go. 2 turnovers for San Francisco. I certainly think that is a number you would think Oakland would have. It was Derek Carr, the rookie, 254 yards, 3 TDs, very efficient game. You would think Colin Kaepernick would be doing that, and Derek Carr would be the one with 174 passing yards, a TD, and 2 interceptions. But those were Colin Kaepernick's numbers. They continue to underfeed Frank Gore, only 12 carries, 63 yards. Meanwhile, Michael Riviera, not Vernon Davis, the tight end for the Oakland Raiders, had 109 yards and a touchdown. You're looking at the Raiders defense, not the 49ers defense, racking up 5 sacks and 2 interceptions. And this San Francisco 49ers team is done. They can forget about the playoffs this year. That franchise certainly has a lot of questions to answer because they've invested a lot of money in the wrong places. And that team's in trouble. Let's just put it that way. From top to bottom, that organization has got a lot of work to do. They've found themselves in a huge mess. Again, this team will not make the playoffs this year. Absolutely pathetic offense from what I've seen all year from Colin Kaepernick and his 49ers team. Moving on, the New England Patriots beat the San Diego Chargers on Sunday Night Football. And very good game here, real physical battle. But in the end, that the Patriots are our team who usually don't lose 2 games in a row. That's where my bet was hedged this week beyond anything, and it certainly held true. And you can see how. I mean, you look at what happened in this football game. New England more efficient. Tom Brady at the quarterback position converting 24 first downs, only San Diego only having 13. You look at Tom Brady getting the time, has the weapons he needed, 317 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception. Phillip Rivers, on the other hand, struggled with the tight coverage of Darrelle Revis, Brandon Browner, 189 yards, only 1 TD, 1 interception. San Diego only able to run for 53 yards. And so if you take a look at New England now, who got some nice distribution from Brady, 69-yard TD pass to Julian Edelman. He had 141 in the TD. And then Rob Gronkowski, 87 yards in the TD on 8 catches. And, if you're looking at New England's offense right now, you have to like what you see. They've got a power back in LeGarrette Blount, who can run downhill, pick up the tough yards that they need, be efficient in play action. You look on the outside, either or, Brandon LaFell and Julian Edelman, they kind of trading off a little bit, but 2 viable, nice pieces at the wide receiver position. And then you have Rob Gronkowski at tight end, a guy who's going to dominate the middle of the field and dominate his matchups. And so very efficient now the way that New England is running their offense. And then defensively, you have to like what you're seeing because Vince Wilfork has certainly rounded back into form. That defense now really clamping down on the run. I like the addition of Akeem Ayers coming in for Tennessee. And then if you can't run the football, very good secondary. Devin McCourty at safety. Now you got a little bit more speed on the back end, along with Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner playing very tough on those corners. Revis certainly, if somebody doesn't have the foot speed to get by him, he's locking people down over there. Keenan Allen got stuck on that island. I think he still may be stranded over there. Brandon Browner, although he's not the fastest guy, may be beating coverage a little bit, but very physical player, good height at 6'4", to certainly stay with receivers or at least trail them in the event of a bad pass. And big play in this game as well. There was a hit made by Browner, and when she was penalized, when you seen the replay, it was a shoulder-to-shoulder hit. It was a vicious hit. Don't get me wrong. The term we used to use when I was a kid was he lit his ass up. But the NFL, it's just you don't know what you can do on plays like that when the guy is not leading with his head. He's using his shoulder. He's hitting another player in the shoulder, and at that point, the referees are getting caught up in players' reactions and how their bodies react. So something that certainly has to get looked into. Nonetheless, New England still the number 1 seed currently in the AFC at 10-3. San Diego 8-5, still in that wild card spot, but they've got a lot of teams at 7-6, along with the Baltimore Ravens at 8-5, breathing down their neck. They cannot afford to lose another game, or it may cost them a playoff spot. And then finally, on Monday Night Football, it was Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers beating the Atlanta Falcons in the most entertaining game of the week. It was snowing. The weather was really bad, so you didn't think the stats would be that. But it's football, and that is football weather at its best. And this was a great game, very entertaining to watch. Packers won this one 43-37. Aaron Rodgers continues to impress. Another 327 yards with 3 more touchdown passes. not a single interception. His main hookup was to Jordy Nelson. Nelson, huge game, 162 receiving yards, 2 TDs. Those guys, man, I tell you, one of the best quarterback to wide receiver tandems in the league. Eddie Lacy continues to handle business, giving him 90 tough yards on the ground. Also had a receiving touchdown for Atlanta, though. A lot of big stats put up in this one as well. Julio Jones had the best game for any wide receiver thus far this year, putting up 250 receiving yards in the football game. Had a touchdown as well. Was absolutely unbelievable. Green Bay had no answer for Jones, who unfortunately had to sit to lead this game late with a hip injury. We don't know what the status is, but certainly he returns back healthy. Very exciting player to play. I think the numbers that he put up should have pushed him to the top of the receiving charts in yardage, so we'll certainly have to check for that. Steven Jackson had a touchdown as well. Matty Ice played well in his weather, I guess. His name is Matty Ice. Usually he is cold on the road, but he was cold in a good way on this one. 367 passing yards, 3 TDs, and an interception. At the end of the day, Green Bay just got up and got out in front too far early. Atlanta made a late charge, but never able to catch up. For Green Bay, they still are holding steady. They now improved to 10-3, 1 game ahead of Detroit in the NFC North. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons, they are now 5-8. Yet, because the Saints lost, they are still in first place in the NFC South Conference. And so, without a question now, with Carolina only a half game behind both of those teams, it looks like that crazy division race is going to come down to the last week as well. That is going to wrap up our Week 14 games. Before we get out of here, just want to run through my power rankings going into Week 15 of the NFL season. Out in the AFC, my top 5 are New England, Denver, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, and San Diego. The reason that I have Pittsburgh at number 3 ahead of Indianapolis is because they beat them head to head. The reason that I have San Diego ahead of Baltimore, who I actually like better, is because San Diego beat them head to head as well. When you take a look in the NFC, I've got Seattle number 1. I know that they are a game behind the Packers as far as a record is concerned, but they did beat Green Bay head to head. And I think right now, if you look at how both of those teams are playing, if they did play, I think you give a slight edge to Seattle. You got to respect the Super Bowl champs. Got Green Bay at 2. I got Detroit at 3, even though they have the same record actually as Dallas and Philadelphia. But I think they had the best defense out of all of those teams, and so I certainly like that there. Dallas at 4, Philadelphia at 5. That number will switch this week based on who wins that football game. That's a huge football game this week out in Philadelphia for that NFC East title. That is going to wrap up our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you for tuning in and listening each and every week. Don't forget, I'm here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before I get out of here, please make sure you follow me on Twitter at NFLExporter, Facebook.com/NFLExporter. Make sure you also want to follow Derek Shapiro on Twitter at Derek Shapiro Show. That's SHO, no W on the end. Facebook.com/Derek Shapiro Show. You'll see a picture of Derek with the classic hip hop member Wyclef Jean of the Fugees. For myself, that NFL Exporter was NFLExporter. All right, everybody, have a great week. I wish you the best of luck again in your fantasy football as well as your NFL teams. 3 weeks to go. I look forward to seeing you back here same time next week. As always, I'm your host, the NFL Exporter, signing out for the final wrap, 1100.